Exploring a New World by Barbara Pfeiffer. Explorers went on long and often dangerous journeys. They were searching for many things. In this book, you will read about some of their accomplishments. Vocabulary: explorer, colonies, fleet, cargo, conquer, strait. Exploring. In the 1300s, people in Europe read Marco Polo's book about India and China. His stories about spices and treasure made people want to trade goods with these countries. Spices were worth their weight in gold because they helped keep food fresh and made it taste better. By the late 1400s, people in Europe knew the world was round. They hoped that by sailing westward, India and China could be reached easily. First, an explorer had to find the way. No one in Europe knew that the Americas were between Europe and China. Portugal goes first. Africa was one of the first places European explorers visited. Starting in the early 1400s, explorers from Portugal sailed down Africa's west coast. Some explorers started colonies. Colonies sent materials to their mother countries and bought products from them. Ships from Portugal could stop at its colonies for supplies and repairs. Each explorer used information from the previous journey to travel farther. By 1498, Vasco da Gama had sailed all the way around Africa and on to India. Columbus explores. Christopher Columbus believed he could sail west and get to India and China faster than other explorers. He was Italian but went to Spain's king and queen to ask for money. They agreed. Columbus sailed 3 small ships across the Atlantic Ocean. When he reached land on October 12, 1492, he was sure the island was near China, but it was San Salvador in the Bahamas. Columbus went on to Hispaniola and Cuba. Columbus made 3 later trips back to this area. He never found gold or spices. Cabot goes to Canada. John Cabot thought Columbus had gone too far south to find spices and treasure. Cabot got King Henry VII of England to send him across the Atlantic Ocean in 1497. Cabot sailed to Newfoundland, a big island in eastern Canada. Cabot did not find spices or gold, but he did find trees and rich fishing waters east of Canada. The next year, King Henry sent Cabot exploring with a fleet of 5 ships and soldiers to explore on land. 1 ship turned back at Ireland, and the other ships were never heard from again. Spain starts colonies. When Spain claimed a place in the New World, it tried to start a colony. Columbus left men on the island of Hispaniola on his first trip. The men, however, stole from and fought with the Taino Indians. By the time Columbus came back the next year, his men had been killed. The Taino Indians lived on islands in the Caribbean Sea when explorers first arrived. By the 1580s, nearly all the Taino Indians had died off. Sir Francis Drake of England was an explorer and privateer. He sailed from 1577 to 1580. Robbers on the seas. Many of the ships carrying treasure from the New World back to Europe became targets for robbers. There were 2 types of robbers: privateers and pirates. Privateers were hired by a king or queen to steal the cargo from ships of other countries. Cargo is the group of things a ship is taking from one place to another. Pirates were outlaws or thieves who stole on their own. Cabrillo Explores. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo spent his youth helping the Spanish military explore areas of the New World. He settled in Guatemala and built ships for transporting goods. In 1542, Cabrillo led an expedition to present-day California, exploring for Spain. He left Mexico with 3 ships and sailed for 3 months before discovering what is now San Diego Bay. He is remembered for being the first European to explore California. Cartier Explores. France began to explore North America when King Francis I sent Jacques Cartier. The year was 1535, 43 years after Columbus sailed. Cartier made 3 trips to what is now Canada and sailed up the St. Lawrence River. He claimed the land for France. This helped later French explorers who went west by land. Cartier and his men later turned south to explore part of the future United States. Cartier later returned home and wrote a book about his travels. Spain in the Southwest. Starting in 1540, Francisco Vázquez de Coronado took 300 Spanish men and 800 American Indians with him as he explored what is now Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Some of his men saw the Grand Canyon. Spain's king thought Coronado had failed because he did not find gold or other treasure. Later, missionaries and soldiers from Spain went to California in 1769. Father Junipero Serra began building 9 missions near the Pacific Ocean. Many of California's missions were built during this time period. Spain and France on the Mississippi. Hernando de Soto and an army of 600 men from Spain explored today's southeastern United States. Their goals were to find gold and conquer the American Indians who lived in the area. In 1541, they became the first Europeans to find the Mississippi River. Francis Louis Joliet and Jacques Marquette explored the northern half of the river in 1673. 6 years later, a nobleman with the title of Sieur de La Salle explored the whole river. La Salle claimed all the land for France. Champlain Explores. Samuel de Champlain explored for France. Beginning in 1603, Champlain sailed to what is now Canada several times during 30 years. He found the Ottawa River and 2 of the 5 Great Lakes, Ontario and Huron. He also found Lake Champlain, which runs along the border between today's New York State and Vermont. Champlain started a colony that later became the city of Quebec. Hudson and his river. Henry Hudson was English but was sailing for Dutch traders in 1609. He tried to go past Norway and then east to China. Ice stopped his ship. Later, Hudson decided to cross the Atlantic Ocean and look for a strait that went through to China. Hudson later sailed up the Hudson River from today's New York City to Albany. The Dutch built a fort and started a colony there. English, Dutch, and Swedish colonies. English traders started their country's first permanent colony at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. The Dutch began their colony of New Netherland in today's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Delaware in 1624. The Dutch bought Manhattan Island from the American Indians. There the Dutch started a town named New Amsterdam. Later, England took it over and called it New York. Sweden sent colonists to North America. New Sweden began in 1638. Today it is called Wilmington, Delaware. Why did they explore? Explorers sailed on very long voyages. Some ran out of food, while others got sick. Many died from illnesses or from fighting. Explorers went because it was their job. Some wanted fame or knowledge, and others wanted riches. Colonists had to clear the land and plant crops. They often went hungry at first, and they did not know when the supply ships would come back. They might never see their families again. Most of them stayed, starting new lives in a whole new world.